Special Chenango Fork Special Board of Education meeting, August 31st, 2020. Could the, oh my goodness, I'm already forgetting how to do this. Could the clerk please conduct a roll call, please?
Amy O'Brien.
Here.
Spiros Tomatoes.
Here.
Mary Collins.
Here.
Mike Babra.
Here.
Lynn Lockwood.
Here.
We have a quorum. I call the meeting to order.
I, Erin McMullen, Board Clerk, have confirmed with Council that this meeting is being held in compliance with Executive Order 202.1, issued by Governor Andrew M. Cuomo on March 12, 2020. The Executive Order suspends Article 7 of the Public Officers Law to the extent necessary to permit any public body to meet and take any action authorized by law without permitting in-public, in-person access to meetings and authorizing such meetings to be held remotely by conference call or similar service. This meeting is being held remotely via Zoom virtual meeting software. The public has the ability to view or listen to this meeting live via the Zoom app, web browser, and/or by telephone. This meeting is being recorded and will be transcribed at a later date.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.1 Superintendent's Report.
There's just two quick things on, well, there's one quick thing and one thing we need to discuss, obviously. Originally, when we made a decision about 2.5 weeks ago, we decided that we would not require our students to wear a mask while they were seated as long as they were 6 foot apart. The admin team spoke about that today, and with CDC and DOH guidelines, and I've talked to quite a few people at DOH, they strongly recommend that the students do wear a mask all times with allotted mask breaks. So we decided today as an admin team that we're going to change that, and students will be required to wear a mask during the school day, and they will be given mask breaks. So that's an FYI to the board and to any public on. Like I said, from day one, our plan was fluid and it would change as we have more information, and the more we looked into it and the more we talked to the DOH, myself personally, and I met with DOH personnel, they really do recommend the mask being on. So for the sake of all involved, we're going to have our students wear the mask, and we will have mask breaks given in.
Joe, what's a mask break? Like, what's involved with that?
I am working on that right now, Lynn, because we made the decision this morning of doing the mask. So one of the things I walked away from the admin meeting with was my task to come up with the mask breaks. We will come up with that, and they will put on, it will be on the webpage.
Okay, thanks.
The second part of our meeting tonight is to discuss the 20% cut in state aid by Governor Cuomo. And Mr. Petrino has a PowerPoint he's going to go over. I'm not looking for the board to make any decisions about anything tonight, as we have a couple of weeks to do so, and we can rediscuss in September. But it was very imperative that this got on the board's radar, on the public's radar now and not later, because next month, if we're in the same situation, the board's going to be faced with very tough decisions. So I'm not asking the board tonight to make any decisions on anything. I mean, I plan on starting next 2 weeks from today, remote students. Athletics right now are slated to go ahead as you know, the governor is letting us in New York State Ed. Having said that, they're being looked at as we speak. So athletics is up in the air right now. I mean, yes, they're scheduled to go on, but that could change at any moment. And again, with a 20% state aid reduction, the board has to be aware of it, and the public has to be aware of it, and that is the main gist of this meeting. So I'm not asking for any votes tonight or any, you know, to change our going remote in 2 weeks from today. So is the board clear with that? Because I think there's some misconceptions. I was going to ask you guys for canceling this, that, and the other thing, and that's not the point of this meeting tonight. It's an informational meeting for the board.
So you're currently planning to go in hybrid on 9/14, not just remote?
Correct. That's
Okay.
our current plan, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's my full recommendation we go with that current plan going forward until we have more information what's going on sports-wise and school-wise. So again, strictly informational meeting tonight of where we are and what our future looks like. If the 20% carries out and we do not get federal aid. So, Aaron, can you bring up the PowerPoint, please? Mr. Petrino, I'm going to let you walk through the PowerPoint.
Okay, next slide, Aaron. Okay, what we know now, the 2019-20 excess cost aid and the state grant reimbursements and the cafeteria payments after July 1st have already been reduced 20%. So what that amounts to right now is we've had a deduct of roughly $88,000 currently. Absent any federal aid, we anticipate New York State will also withhold 2020 state aid payments through the state's second quarter, which is the end of September 30th, by 20%. What we don't know is that will these deductions be permanent deductions, or will they be remitted back to the district later on? Which is,
Mark, I think it's important too that if they are given back to the district later on, it's going to go from the feds to the state. We'll have a type of timetable what that would look like.
correct. I mean, if the federal government does come through, then what's the timeline of that? We don't know, which would definitely impact our cash flow. Next slide. So what you can see here is a breakdown of the aids in blue and what time frame we would look to see those deductions.
Aaron, can you zoom that a little, please? I apologize for interrupting, Mark. It's just pretty small. Okay, what happened?
I have to start over. I'm not sure how to zoom in when I have a PowerPoint going on this laptop, but my it wasn't really cooperating with me. So let me get back to the screen share.
Can everyone else see it okay? Any information on it? It's pretty small for me.
If you're on your iPad, you can pinch and, make it bigger. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much you can zoom that, Aaron.
No, I don't think I can.
Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you for trying.
Aaron, can you hit that plus sign up near the top?
This is really a snapshot. It's not, so none of the commands up at.
No, and I just checked with Jamie. There's no way to zoom in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
So as you can see, in September, we would get a reduction of $717,000 in aid. In December, another 400. In March would be a big one of 1.5. In June, 1.1. And the following September would be the rest, for a total of $4.1 million. Now, Chenango Forks' budget, most of the revenue for the budget comes from state aid. In fact, 60% of the revenue for Forks comes from state aid. So to take a $4.1 million hit, that affects 12% of the budget. What we have available to use to offset that is the amount over 4% that we carried over, which is $73,000, because $200,000 of it was the state aid shortage in transportation that we knew was going to happen, since we didn't pay Bernie Bus the full amount of transportation. So there was going to be a shortage in state aid for transportation. There was also the shortage for the health insurance of $400,000. So that was going to be covered by the amount that was over 4%. Plus we have $400,000 in the teachers' retirement reserve, which we will use to pay for teachers' retirement this year, which will be used to offset that. So that brings us to roughly $500,000, which doesn't even get us through the end of September. We could use some unassigned fund balance, the 4% of our, that we carry over every year, which is a district savings account, to take us through September. And then we start getting into the rest of the savings, which is not really recommended to be used, because if you use your savings up, then next year budget comes around. Again, you don't know if you're going to have state aid. You don't have savings. Then you're between. Then you're stuck because you've got nothing to fall back onto. And we've already seen, some of the aids that have already been cut. So that's where we stand currently. It's not a pretty picture. In fact, probably you'll see that most districts that fall into the category where most of their revenue comes from state aid are going to be looking like this. Because it's not really a fair reduction. 20% across the board for all districts is not really fair, because the needy districts or the rural districts who don't have a lot of tax base, where most of their revenue comes from state aid, it's a bigger impact to them than districts who don't have a lot of state aid. So that's really not a fair across the board reduction. Really isn't really fair to all districts. Next slide.
Okay, Mark, before we go to the next slide, does the board have any questions on this slide? I want to make sure all 5 board members know exactly where we are. Okay, all right. Aaron, next slide. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so $4.1 million is the worst case scenario. Will it happen? Won't it happen? We don't know that. You have to be prepared for the possibility. We can cover, maybe 700,000 of it. So where do we come up with the 3.4 million to cover the shortage? These are some possible scenarios of where we can do that by going full remote. These are some of the areas that would happen. That would bring you, going full remote, you could have probably $3.8 million worth of savings. Again, everything is up for negotiation. This is nothing that's written in stone. If we went half-year remote, we could see the savings as being 1.8 million. But again, that doesn't take you up. That doesn't take you to the worst case scenario. So it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. These are just some items. Next slide, Aaron. So what do we do now? If the cuts come back, then this is a cash flow issue that can be managed with our savings and with a RAN, which are revenue anticipation notes, which are basically you go out and borrow the money, and you're borrowing it with the knowledge that you will have the money to pay it back. And it's a short-term borrowing, but that's only available to the district if we know that the money is coming back. And right now we do not know that. Reopening has caused the district to incur costs that were not budgeted for and will require cuts in other areas to cover them. So basically, what has happened by the governor saying you can reopen, but there's all these protocols that have to be in place. He's basically put every district the additional costs that were never budgeted for. So on top of that, the districts had to make cuts somewhere to pay for these items. Then he turns around and they cut back the money that they were going to give you to fund your normal budget. So you're basically losing two ways. You're losing on the money you had to spend to put these protocols in place to open up, and then he's taken away state aid. The decisions should probably be made by the end of September, early October, because that's the time when we should know a better idea of, whether these things might be permanent or not. We'll get, because the state is supposed to have their more concrete plans by the end of September, so they said. And that's probably around the time when, we've pretty much used up our the reserves that we legally are able to. So I really wouldn't recommend that we wait too much longer than that to make a decision. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions.
So again, we don't need to make any decisions tonight, but the board has to understand what's going on right now. They have to understand that going forward in the next 2 or 3 weeks, if things don't change, you're going to be faced with some very tough decisions.
Mark, I have a question. Wasn't there some funds that we were given to pay for COVID stuff from the state or federal or something?
There are FEMA funds, but the FEMA funds are for the pretty much cleaning the building. They have not made a determination yet if FEMA is going to reimburse for opening schools, which has to do with the PPE, all the protocols that you put in place to open the schools. So that hasn't been determined yet if FEMA is going to reimburse. And even if they do reimburse, FEMA's turnaround time, from what I've seen, what I've been involved with them, has been 1 to 2 years.
It's closer to 2, Mark. I think 1 would be very lucky.
Wasn't there something called the CARES Act?
The CARES Act was used when the governor presented his budget and passed it. He had a pandemic adjustment, and what the offset of that adjustment was the CARES Act. So initially, there was foundation aid that we got. What it was passed was there was no increase in foundation aid. It was going to be the same as last year. In order to accomplish that, we had to use CARES Act. The governor used CARES Act money to make us just to get where we were last year.
So we did receive some money, but it only made up for the deficit from last year.
Made up for the deficit the governor put in for the pandemic.
Do we have a figure on how much we received?
It was 300,000.
Okay. And I'm looking at I guess it's the 4th slide where it shows the full year versus a half year savings.
Yep.
It has like textbooks on there.
Mm-hmm.
If we go remote, so currently, haven't those already been ordered for this year? Like, how is it?
No, the high school had not ordered the science textbooks. They made a determination that they didn't really need them this year. They could get by without it.
So
I want to stress
Go
I
ahead.
want to stress that, whatever we do, it's not going to be solved just this year. We're just kicking the can down the road here, because this is going to be multiple years. And, you're going to be making a tough decision this year, but that decision's not going to go away. You're going to have to make it again for the next year.
So like the textbooks, that's a savings we're gonna see no matter what.
Right.
And then I see like under operations, there's tree removal, and then also under transportation, there's tree removal. How are those different?
One's done by the bus garage and the other one is the school buildings.
Okay.
And Lynn, you can tell, and Spiros is right, pull up on your iPad so you can make it bigger so you can see these numbers.
Yeah, I got it up on my screen, my other screen. That's why I'm not looking directly at my Zoom screen.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why I'm looking down as well, because I'm looking at, right now, we don't have any CFTA teaching, Chenango Forks Teacher Association staff in this sheet right here that you're looking at.
So what are you saying? No layoffs then?
That's what we're trying to avoid, Lynn. I mean, we can't cut our teachers back. We're not overly plentiful in any of the 3 buildings as it is. So again, this sheet was put together with no CFTA.
Okay.
So we're going to have to make a decision end of September, beginning of October, but school starts before that. Would it be more disruptive to make a decision then? I mean, I understand timetables. I'm just thinking, what is the least disruptive time to make a decision?
Well, Spiros, the reason I didn't ask for a decision tonight is I'd really like the kids to come back to school. We've mailed the letters. We've got the hybrid plan ready to go. And if we can bring them back at least for a couple of weeks and see what's going on and buy a little bit of time. So as far as athletics go, athletics is one of the first things on the list. I can't guarantee right now that the athletics will happen. So that's not a decision I think our school board needs to make. I think it's a decision the state can make, and then we can look at that. And the same with going hybrid or remote. I think if we wait, again, the 2 or 3 weeks, there may be a decision made for us that we don't have to make. I think it was Oneonta yesterday sent all their kids home. And I know your daughter goes to Brockport and they're having issues there. So do we try to make these decisions now, or do we wait 2 or 3 weeks and see if some are actually made for us? And again, I'm asking the board, I'm not telling the board, I'm asking the board.
I would rather wait to make a decision.
I agree. We have to. I think we go as what we have started. Let these kids come back. Little sense of normalcy for them. Then come October, we can revisit this whole thing. And again, like we've seen through this whole situation. This thing's so fluid. Things can change in a month.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm not aware of any schools who in our area who said they're going to go full remote. I know schools have pushed it out to October, but I don't think again, there's one, and the name escapes me, and they are going full remote. But outside,
just Binghamton's all I know. Yeah.
Right, but they're just
Norwich.
starting late.
I think Norwich said that they don't have the funds to open. That was in the evening on Thursday or Friday, unless it's changed.
Yeah, but Binghamton just pushed their start date back, Mike. They didn't say they're going full remote for the year.
Right. Yeah. That's my bad.
I would like to urge all the people listening in to contact their state legislatures and let them know that this is not acceptable for these reductions.
I mean, you're not alone in this. I mean, every district right now, after the news last week from the state, every district is looking at this whole situation right now and reevaluating.
Every district in area, I know ME, I think they're having a board meeting tonight to discuss exactly the same thing we're discussing.
Yeah, they're in the same situation.
But this was good to have tonight. Like, I think there's a lot of people who really don't fully comprehend the 20% reduction, what Cuomo's doing. And this was good to have so people realize now what they can see. We're up against the wall right here.
Yeah, and again, Mike, this is nothing the school did or I did or the board did, or, I mean, we had a budget, we had a balanced budget, we went out, we did everything right, but when you pull back 20%, and Mark said it, 60% of our budget is state aid, $4.1 million off our table. There's just no answers.
Like Lynn said, people have got to start contacting people as much as possible.
And it's not just schools, because counties and towns are going through the same thing, because everybody lost 20%.
Well, I'm in favor of moving forward as we have our current plan in place, and we don't make a decision until we absolutely have to.
Yeah, Amy, I think that's the best way to go forward. I mean, I can tell you the teachers are ready, the admin team's ready, the students are ready to start 2 weeks from today with our hybrid model. And I think if we interrupted that tonight, we'd be asking for problems.
So can we state firmly that there will be no teacher cuts or not?
Absolutely not. Mary, it's going to be a board decision going forward, but at 4.1 million, right here, we have 3.8, and that's teaching remotely. That's sports, that's transportation. Transportation and remote is almost 3 million. So going forward, I can't guarantee anything. I can just tell you right now, we don't have any on the table. But
my thought's a little bit different. My thinking was that if we visit what we can cut and make that decision, the staff would rest more assured that they're not at the bottom of the list at the moment. They went through this all summer not knowing whether they were or were going to be employed prior to that, I should say spring. So my thinking is, if we dig in and look at some things that will impact the fewest people, the fewest students, that perhaps that will help us go in the direction of not having to open it up again and have people worrying about what's going to happen. We'll know, because it doesn't matter how much money we get, we still, if we don't get the full amount, we're going to have to cut something. So what will that first something be?
are you asking me, Mary, or are you asking the board?
I'm asking anyone that has an answer.
Again, I mean, Mark and I put this together. I mean, you can see what's on here. We don't have any staff on here, and we're good with that. But again, if you look at it, and let me open my iPad back up quick, the biggest savings are if you go remote, and that's going to be almost $3 million. The rest of the things on this list are all relatively small besides that. The only other big ticket item is sports. So I don't know how to answer your question. I mean, we can start chopping small stuff off here, but it's not going to make a big enough dent in 2.1.
Now, Joe, let me ask, or Mark, let me ask this question. Is it going to be, or do we not know, an all or none? Is that either going to be 20% is withheld or nothing withheld, or could it be 10%? Are those possibilities out there?
It's what the federal, right now it's 20%, Amy, and it's definitely 20%. The only thing that we have going for us, if the federal government steps in and helps us with that.
Well, I'm asking it backwards. I guess I understand it's 20%, but is there a chance that we'll get 10% of that back or X amount percent, or we just need to plan and focus on the 20% being gone?
Focus on the 20% being gone unless the federal
Okay.
government comes in to help us. Unless you disagree, Mark.
No, because nobody knows right now. I mean,
Well-
20% is the number that they threw out in March. 20% is the number they threw out in June. 20% is the number they've been throwing out all the time. And then 20% was the number that they took
Mm-hmm.
the first go around. So it's out there and they took it already, and we have to assume that they're going to continue to take it.
That's the reason I felt we should move ahead and look at things to see what the possibilities are. Because if this is thrown at us, like everything else just happens, we get a letter and that's or whatever, and it's told to us right away or demanded of us right away, we're going to be scrambling at that point.
Have they given any reasoning why it's 20% across the board, the way they've not taken into consideration schools that rely more heavily on aid should get a smaller deduction?
They're just looking at their deficit, which is, billions of dollars, and they're trying to figure out how they can make up that deficit. So they just took whatever that they shell out to the localities and then figured out 20% would be enough to cover their deficit.
I mean, I know you guys don't have the answer to this, but I really don't understand why they think we can operate with a 4.1 million deficit. Like, they're, to me,
Lynn,
that's just like a fun fab within a wall,
Lynn, it's all a political ploy. We all know that. This is Cuomo trying to strong arm the government.
Lynn, to be entirely honest, we can't operate at $4.1 million deficit because, like Mark said, even if we make these cuts this year, what are you going to do next year?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not acceptable. We can't operate a school with a 10%. And I'm not trying to be dramatic.
So end of September, October gets here and we're not getting it back, then basically we're going to have to decide whether or not we're going to take this list here and chop that all off. Is that right?
Yeah. And the biggest thing on the list, Amy, is going remote.
Yeah.
It's about 2.5 million.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at two line items. Two line items are just 2.5 added together by going remote. Am I
And those,
the idea? It's a horrible idea, but these are our numbers. Without going into staff makes up $17 million of our budget. Without going into that 17 million, this is what you're looking at.
So if we go back and COVID becomes like a non-issue, like for whatever, just pretend we don't have an outbreak or whatever, how can we go remote if COVID's not going on? Like, is that something we can even do if we don't have COVID causing us to be remote?
I believe you can, Lynn. I don't personally think COVID's going to go away in the next 2 or 3 months. I would love it if it did. But if we can't operate a district, again, what choices do you have? I mean, 4.1 million. That's insurmountable.
I just want to throw another thing out there that I don't know if any of you remember the GED.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
GA.
Gap elimination adjustment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
GA.
The district never got that money back. So when you think about, will you get this money back or won't you get this money back? Just think about that in the back of your minds, that when he came out with that, the districts never got that money back.
To go back to answer Mary's question, some of the things on this list are not going to be bought regardless. The textbooks, the trees, blacktop repair, the crack sealing, all that stuff is going to come off the budget. We're not doing any of that stuff. So we are going to start to chip on this list, but it's the bigger things on the list that the board's going to have to make the decisions about. So we are chipping into this list right now. Middle school chairs, I'm just reading a few things, textbooks, Scantron, xylophone, you know, plan books. But it's the bigger things that, like the club salaries, 53,000. It's things like that we got to look at. You know, the truck, the floor machine, the blacktop, the tree removal, the crack sealing, that can all come off right now. But Mark and I will take that and it'll come out of the budget. But again, it's not going to come anywhere near 4.1 million.
Will we be able to follow the protocols and have clubs? Or have clubs and follow the protocols at the same time?
Right now, Mary, and again, you know, I'm talking to the CFTA, but right now we do not have clubs and the board has not appointed any advisors to the clubs.
Joe, one thing I don't see on here is sub pay. If we go remote, are we gonna have subs? Like, how does that work? Like, if a teacher's sick and they can't do the remote, do we have a sub come fill in, or should that be something that's on this list?
No, because you would have to have someone fill in, because let's say Mike was my teacher and he was out for 5 days. He just can't go missing for 5 days. Someone's going to have to fill in for him.
Right.
Again, I don't have an answer and I'm not sure there's a superintendent in the state of New York that has an answer to this. It's something our governor threw at us. I'm furious about it. I think the parents, the community, the teachers, the admin team are furious about it. I'm sure the board is. But it's the hand we're dealt and we're going to have to deal with it.
Which is why everyone should contact their legislatures. Email, call, whatever. If anybody wants email addresses or how to contact them, send me an email.
I believe we have all that information on the website. I can double check, Lynn, but if not, I can definitely get it right out there on the front of the website.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe, our aides, will we keep the aides we have? I'm sure that they're very badly needed.
If you go remote learning, then the aides would not, they would be furloughed.
All of them, because I know some of like the middle school, high school aides were helping students during, you know, the spring. So would it be all of them across the board?
That would be my suggestion. If you look at the first line, that would be a $1.2 million savings. And the other savings by going to remote, that's huge, is the transportation at 1.5. And I kept saying, what did I keep saying? 2.6, 2.7, that's your 2.7 million.
And remember another thing, that if you don't have transportation, you don't have that transportation contract expense, that's less transportation aid next year that you're going to get, which is going to be less revenue next year.
Is there like a formula for that? Like, Mark?
Usually it's like 80, you get 80% back, or 70, 80% back in aid the following year.
Okay.
But it's a formula and it's kind of complicated, but transportation aid is a big piece of revenue for the district. But if you have the savings one year, next year, you'll lose out on the revenue. That's why I say, you know, this problem's not going to go away in 1 year. It's going to be multiple years that you're going you'll have the consequences of this.
Do we know what we're looking at in future years? I mean, realistically, do we know what we're looking
I wouldn't even, like, if you asked me last year, did I know what was going to be next year? It's impossible to know that.
Again, going back to what Lynn said, it's what the governor says and what he gives us. I mean, every year we watch the budget being released and try to figure out how much aid the schools are going to get. Like, Amy, you were on the board for the GEA.
Yeah,
Spiros, you remember it. You're at the mercy. You're at the mercy of the governor when it comes to this.
so what does it look like for a school to run and not be at the mercy of the state?
Private,
Wealthy school districts,
a private tuition paying school, Amy,
That's it?
would not be at the mercy of the state, a CBA.
That's it?
Yeah, like Mark said, it's 60% of our budget state aid.
and then conversely, you look at like Vestal, they get 30% of their revenue comes from state aid. So
What would the percentage be once you cancel out all the requirements, all the ridiculous requirements imposed by the state? Then what does it look like?
all the unfunded mandates, you mean?
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
couldn't tell that.
We're going to have to get extremely creative and seriously think outside the box, or I can't even.
Amy, a few years
visualize
ago,
what it would
another
look like.
district a few years ago actually tried to go down the road of a charter school and convert their public school to a charter school because of that type of thing. State wouldn't let them do it. I want to say it was one of the first years I was on the board. They were trying to do it, and the state won't let us pursue that avenue. It would just never happen. Not that I think we should do that, but it's impossible.
Yet they tie our hands by cutting our funding.
That's right.
Yep.
Joe, have we had an increase of families homeschooling this year since COVID started?
We have some, Mary. I wouldn't say a significant increase because we have the families that we're about 70-30 remote hybrid. So we small percentage, maybe 10 to 12, 10 to 15 more have gone homeschooling. But again, we have over 1,400 kids in the district.
Joe, you said 70-30 remote hybrid. You meant 70 hybrid, 30 remote.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I said it backwards. It's been a long day of looking at this.
That's okay. I just wanted to clarify for those listening at home.
Yeah. It's been a long weekend. It's been a long week. It's been ever since this came out and he actually took it, which I think a lot of people thought he was bluffing. I don't know, Mark. I think you and I thought he was bluffing, but he actually took it. He took the first 88,000 from us.
Any other discussion? We're just going in circles right now. We're not progressing.
Well, it's because there's no answers, Amy. I mean,
I know. Oh,
we're
yeah,
sitting
no,
here,
you're absolutely right.
we're sitting here looking for answers. No, the answer is that we get our 20% back.
Right. There's nothing more for us to do tonight. This is.
And like I said when the meeting started, this was an informational night to the board.
Yep.
to the community of where we stand, what we're doing, where we are.
Yep, absolutely.
So, to wrap it up, I think we continue to go hybrid. We start 2 weeks from today and go hybrid, and we revisit this in the September board meeting to see if anything's changed. I don't know any other course to pursue.
Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for, let's see.
September.
10th, right?
I gotta look at my calendar.
I believe it's September 10th.
September 10th at 5:30. Hopefully we know more by then. It's only 10 more days.
Right.
We have another meeting after that to see what's going on.
Would it be wise to push it out a week, or because are we going to have anything to work with by then?
I was gonna say, I think we should probably push it out to maybe the 24th.
Right.
Amy, I don't see us having anything extra by September 10th that we don't have tonight.
All right, and I'm okay with Mike's suggestion. What do you guys think about the 24th? I just want to make sure we have tools in our arsenal. Otherwise, why are we meeting?
Yeah, I don't want a meeting where we have no answers again and
Mhm.
really need to make a decision on the 10th still.
Right.
Well, you can't make the decision on the 10th. School starts on the 14th, right? Let me pull my calendar.
Yes.
Exactly. That's why I think we should relate to the 24th.
Okay. Spiros, Mary Lynn, do you agree to the 24th? Yes. Yes. Mary, what do you think?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we are going to take our September 10th meeting and move it to the 24th, and God willing, we will have some information. So, okay, is there anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Mike. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Spiros. Discussion? Roll call.
Amy O'Brien,
Aye.
Spiros Tomatoes,
Aye.
Mary Collins,
Aye.
Mike Vavra,
Aye.
Lynn Lockwood.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Good night.